For thousands of years, the oceans and deserts have hidden humanity's greatest secrets. Entire cities sank beneath waves. Fortresses vanished under rising waters. Fleets of ships lay buried in desert sands. To the naked eye, these worlds are lost forever. But what if we could drain the oceans? What if we could strip away the sands of time? Modern science makes the impossible possible. With sonar, satellites, and digital reconstruction, we can peel back the waters, lift away the dunes, and uncover civilizations as they once stood. In this journey, we'll see Egypt's lost lighthouse rise again, walk among buried royal fleets, and uncover fortress chains that guarded an empire. We'll sail with Roman merchants whose ships carried the lifeblood of an empire, and we'll stand inside harbors engineered to defy the sea itself. These are not myths. They are the hidden foundations of history, revealed only when oceans are drained, and silence is broken. Prepare to witness the world beneath the waves and sands, a world where ancient ingenuity still speaks across millennia, reminding us that civilization's greatest monuments often lie not above the earth, but beneath it. For thousands of years, oceans, rivers, and deserts have acted as both guardians and executioners of human history. Entire cities, temples, and monuments have slipped beneath waves or been buried under drifting sands, leaving only fragments of memory in legend and myth. Yet, in the modern era, humanity possesses tools capable of peeling away these layers. By draining the oceans with advanced sonar mapping, by stripping sands away with satellite imaging, and by reconstructing ruins with digital precision, the unseen is revealed. The past emerges, sharper and more compelling than any tale handed down by oral tradition. In this journey, the focus turns first to Egypt. The land where stone monuments defied time, but where countless treasures also sank beneath the waters or hid in the desert's grip. Draining these forgotten landscapes allows a glimpse into Egypt's dual legacy of power and spirituality, one rooted in both life and death. At the edge of the Mediterranean, where the Nile meets the sea, lies Alexandria, a city founded by Alexander the Great and perfected under the Ptolemies. It was here, over 2,000 years ago, that one of the seven wonders of the ancient world stood, the Lighthouse of Alexandria, also known as the Pharos. The ancient account spoke of a tower rising nearly 330 feet above the water. Its square base supported an octagonal midsection, topped by a circular tier. At its crown, a fire or polished bronze mirrors projected light across the sea, guiding mariners safely to the harbor. The beacon was both practical and symbolic, a declaration that Alexandria was the maritime heart of the Mediterranean. For centuries, storms, earthquakes, and erosion worked against it. By the Middle Ages, the Pharos was no more. Yet the sea did not entirely erase its presence. Submerged granite blocks, collapsed statues, and massive architectural fragments lay strewn across the seafloor. With sonar and digital mapping, the ocean is drained in virtual space. The pieces are lifted from the murk, reassembled, and reimagined. The picture that emerges is staggering. Columns once thought decorative reveal themselves to be load-bearing supports. Statues of gods, including Poseidon, stand as markers of both protection and power. In reconstructing the lighthouse digitally, archaeologists confirm what ancient writers described, a structure that rivaled the pyramids in ambition and outlasted them in utility. The Pharos was not merely a lighthouse. It was a political statement, a declaration to every sailor who approached Alexandria that this was the seat of learning, wealth, and naval supremacy. As one of the tallest human-made structures of antiquity, it embodied the ingenuity and daring of a civilization that fused Greek engineering with Egyptian ambition. To travel deeper into Egypt's past, one must turn away from the sea and face the desert sands. At Abydos, a sacred city associated with Osiris, satellite mapping reveals shapes long invisible to the naked eye. Just beneath the sand lie elongated impressions, the outlines of ships, buried in parallel. Excavation uncovers vessels unlike any found before. Constructed from planks tied with rope, the ships are among the earliest examples of complex wooden boat building in the world. Radiocarbon dating places them at over 5,000 years old, predating the Great Pyramids. Their arrangement, aligned beside mud brick enclosures, suggests deliberate placement, boat graves, crafted for eternity. These ships were not mere relics of commerce or war. They were funerary vessels, buried as offerings to serve a king in the afterlife. The mud brick structures that enclosed them, once plastered with reflective white, shimmered in the desert sun, transforming the graves into luminous markers across the landscape. To drain the desert of its sands is to reveal more than ships. Magnetometry uncovers the outline of a vast funerary complex, stretching beyond the visible horizon. Tombs, temples, processional ways, all hidden for millennia. This was a necropolis that predated the Valley of the Kings, a place where pharaohs rehearsed the great themes of resurrection and immortality. The Abydos fleet reminds us that boats were central to Egyptian cosmology. The sun god Ra himself was imagined sailing across the sky in a celestial bark, descending into the underworld each night and rising again at dawn. By burying real ships, kings of the early dynastic period sought to mirror the journey of gods, ensuring their eternal voyage alongside them. Egyptian civilization has always balanced between permanence and impermanence. The pyramids stand immovable, yet countless treasures vanished under sand or water. Temples bore witness to the passage of dynasties, even as their columns crumbled. By virtually draining these landscapes, a continuity emerges, a thread linking the Lighthouse of Alexandria, a beacon of worldly power, with the ships of Abydos, symbols of spiritual transcendence. The lighthouse declared dominance over seas, while the ships promised salvation in eternity. Both stand as testaments to the Egyptian understanding of power, that to rule the living was not enough. A true legacy extended into the afterlife, into myth, and into memory. In draining the oceans and deserts of Egypt, we rediscover not only artifacts but philosophies. We uncover a worldview where technology served faith, and where faith demanded the most ambitious acts of engineering. From lighthouses guiding ships to funerary fleets guiding souls, Egypt's hidden wonders speak across time, revealing a civilization always reaching for. The Nile has always been the artery of Egypt. Its annual floods nourished the land, its waters carried goods and armies, and its banks anchored cities and temples. Yet the Nile also concealed secrets. When the Aswan High Dam was completed in the 1960s, its rising waters created Lake Nasser, a man-made reservoir stretching more than 300 miles across southern Egypt and northern Sudan. As the waters rose, entire landscapes vanished beneath them. Villages were displaced, temples relocated stone by stone, and fortresses, once guardians of Egypt's southern frontier, sank beneath the lake. To the naked eye, they are gone. But with sonar imaging, satellite mapping, and digital reconstruction, the waters can be drained in virtual space. Beneath them emerges a world of walls, gateways, and bastions, the military backbone of Middle Kingdom Egypt. One of the most striking rediscoveries lies at Uronarti, a rocky island that once bristled with mud brick defenses. Here, during the reign of Pharaoh Senusret III, engineers constructed a fortress to guard Egypt's southern border. Draining the lake exposes its design. Rectangular in shape, the fortress sprawled across the island's summit. Its outer walls, built of mud brick mixed with straw, stood nearly 20 feet high and several feet thick. Buttresses projected at intervals, strengthening the structure much like rebar in modern concrete. Towers flanked the gates, providing elevated positions for archers. Within the walls lay barracks, storehouses, and a governor's residence, the skeletal remains of a miniature city. From above, Uronarti was more than a garrison. It was a message. Its placement ensured visibility from miles away. Traders traveling north with gold, ivory, or cattle saw its silhouette rising above the river. The fortress declared authority, warning potential raiders from Kush, the powerful kingdom to the south, that Egypt's border was not to be crossed. Digital reconstructions bring Uronarti to life. Walls once reduced to eroded mounds rise again. Gateways open, revealing courtyards where soldiers drilled and gathered. In draining Lake Nasser, archaeologists restore not only the architecture but also the lived reality of military life in ancient Egypt, men who patrolled the frontier, kept watch at night and upheld the will of Pharaoh far from the capital. Uronarti was not alone. It was part of a network, at least 15 fortresses constructed along a 200-mile stretch of the Nile during the Middle Kingdom. From Semna to Buhen, these strongholds created a chain of command, each fortress within sight of the next, allowing signals to travel up and down the river with speed. This was more than defense. It was administration. Every boat passing through was observed, recorded, and taxed. The fortresses became checkpoints of empire, ensuring Egypt maintained control over the flow of goods. Gold from Nubia, essential for Egypt's wealth and prestige, passed through these gates. Without this network, Egypt's monumental building projects, temples, tombs, pyramids, could not have been financed. Satellite mapping and sonar surveys reveal details long thought lost. Some forts featured double walls, with ditches or moats dug around them. Others housed granaries large enough to feed hundreds of men for months. The scale indicates that these were not temporary outposts but permanent installations, requiring immense resources and planning. In draining Lake Nasser digitally, scholars can trace how this network functioned as an early form of border security and economic regulation. Long before the Roman limes or the Great Wall of China, Egypt had already perfected the art of building a defensive landscape, not one continuous wall, but a string of fortresses tied together by geography, communication, and purpose. The jewel of this chain was Buhen. Situated near the second cataract of the Nile, Buhen was more than a fortress, it was a city of soldiers, administrators, and craftsmen. When the waters of Lake Nasser are virtually drained, the magnitude of Buhen becomes clear. Its walls stretched nearly a mile in perimeter, encircling an area large enough to house thousands. Towers rose at intervals, their heights reaching 36 feet. Arrow slits lined the walls, allowing defenders to rain projectiles on attackers below. A moat added further protection, making direct assault nearly impossible. The gates were heavily fortified, with overlapping chambers designed to trap intruders in a deadly crossfire. What is astonishing is not just the size, but the chronology. Buhen predates medieval castles of Europe by over 3,000 years, yet its design anticipates many of their features: battlements, moats, bastions, and layered defenses. It stands as evidence that Egypt was not only a land of temples and tombs but also of military innovation centuries ahead of its time. Inside the fortress, life unfolded with rigor. Archaeological reconstructions reveal barracks aligned in rows, storage facilities stacked with grain, and workshops where craftsmen repaired weapons and tools. Granaries of massive scale suggest the fortress was more than self-sufficient, it acted as a logistical hub, stockpiling supplies for other outposts along the frontier. But Buhen also had another role, one that extended beyond defense. It controlled trade. Ivory, ebony, exotic animal skins, and above all, Nubian gold passed through its gates. The gold was essential not only for jewelry and religious offerings but also as a foundation of economic power. Without the wealth secured at Buhen, Egypt's monumental building projects would have faltered. The fortress, therefore, was not merely a military bastion but the beating heart of Egypt's imperial economy. To imagine Buhen and its sister forts is to imagine the lives of those who lived within their walls. Soldiers from across Egypt were stationed here, far from their homes, tasked with guarding the frontier against Nubian incursions. They trained with bows and spears, drilled in formations, and patrolled the riverbanks. Their lives were hard, marked by heat, monotony, and constant vigilance. Yet forts were not barren outposts. Families accompanied soldiers, markets thrived within the walls, and temples rose alongside barracks. Priests conducted rituals to maintain divine favor. Children played in courtyards while merchants haggled over goods arriving from Nubia. These forts were living communities, their rhythms shaped by both military duty and civilian life. Draining Lake Nasser allows us to reconstruct these rhythms. The outlines of houses and storage rooms reveal domestic spaces, while temples mark the presence of spiritual life. The evidence suggests a blending of Egyptian and Nubian cultures, as soldiers and locals interacted, traded, and intermarried. The frontier was not a simple line of division but a zone of contact, a place where cultures met under the shadow of Egyptian walls. Like all fortifications, the Middle Kingdom fortresses eventually faced obsolescence. As dynasties rose and fell, Egypt's priorities shifted. Some forts were abandoned, others repurposed. By the New Kingdom, Egypt expanded deeper into Nubia, establishing dominance further south. The old forts, once symbols of strength, became relics. Yet their legacy endured. The knowledge gained in constructing them, in managing logistics, communication, and frontier control, informed Egypt's later campaigns. More importantly, their remains remind us that empires are not built solely on monuments of worship but also on the less glamorous, though equally vital, structures of power, walls, gates, and garrisons. Today, the waters of Lake Nasser conceal them from view, but digital draining restores their place in history. Forts like Uronarti and Buhen tell a story of ambition, organization, and the constant negotiation between security and expansion. They reveal a civilization not content to rule within its borders but determined to project power beyond them, to shape not only the Nile Valley but the lands that fed it. The fortresses of the Nile frontier remind us that civilizations are more than their cultural achievements, they are also systems of defense and control. In draining Lake Nasser, the outlines of Egypt's hidden empire emerge, not in temples or tombs, but in bastions of mud brick and stone. These walls, now invisible beneath the water's surface, once stood as the line between Egypt and its rivals, between order and chaos, between prosperity and vulnerability. They allowed Egypt to flourish, to gather wealth from the south, and to build monuments that still awe the world. Without these forts, the pyramids might never have risen, the temples might never have been adorned with gold, and the legacy of Egypt might have dimmed centuries earlier. In peeling away the waters, we rediscover not just architecture but strategy. We see how a civilization thought about power, about borders, and about survival. Egypt's fortresses stand as silent witnesses to an eternal truth. Empires endure not only through what they build for glory, but through what they build for security. The sea has always been both a barrier and a bridge. For ancient civilizations, it was the medium through which ideas, goods, and power flowed. Ships carried armies, merchants, pilgrims, and exiles, harbors became gateways to entire empires. But the sea is also a jealous custodian. Storms wrecked ships, earthquakes toppled harbors, and time buried entire infrastructures beneath layers of sediment. Today, advanced sonar scanning and digital modeling allow these watery tombs to be drained in virtual space. As the seas recede, new worlds rise, the bustling harbors of Rome, the shipwrecks that carried the empire's fortunes, and the experimental engineering that transformed coastlines. To understand the might of the Roman world, one must drain its oceans and walk the seabeds where power once flowed. At the height of the Roman Empire, Rome was home to more than 1 million people. The largest city the ancient world had ever seen. Feeding and supplying such a metropolis required an infrastructure of unprecedented scale. The solution lay not within the city, but along the coast, a colossal harbor complex known as portus. To the casual observer, Portus is little more than scattered ruins on the Italian shoreline. But when satellite imaging and ground-penetrating radar strip away centuries of sediment, the outlines of a massive port city reappear. A hexagonal basin, nearly a mile across, dominates the design. Its geometric precision maximized docking space, allowing dozens of ships to unload simultaneously. Canals linked the basin to the Tiber River, ensuring goods flowed straight into Rome. Around the harbor stood warehouses, vast halls with arched ceilings, designed to store grain imported from North Africa and Egypt. Amphorae filled with olive oil and wine were stacked in orderly rows, while exotic goods, spices, marble, silks, awaited distribution across the empire. Digital reconstruction restores the grandeur. Ships of every size crowd the quays. Cranes, powered by human treadwheels, lift heavy cargo. Merchants, sailors, and slaves moved ceaselessly through the port. Portus was not just a harbor, it was the beating heart of an empire, a logistical marvel that made urban Rome possible. Without Portus, Rome would have starved. With it, the empire fed its people, supplied its legions, and projected power across the Mediterranean. To drain Portus is to reveal the machinery of empire, a system as vital as any legion, as enduring as any law. Yet the story of Rome's maritime mastery is not told only in harbors. It also lies in the wrecks that litter the seabed, each a time capsule of empire. Off the coast of Spain, near Villajoyosa, lies the Buhen wreck, one of the largest Roman merchant ships ever found. Draining the sea uncovers its hull, over 100 feet long, with a cargo capacity of more than 200 tons. Within, amphorae remain stacked in perfect rows, preserved as though still awaiting delivery. The amphorae once contained garum, the prized fermented fish sauce that flavored Roman diets from the villas of senators to the kitchens of soldiers. But beneath the garum jars lay a secret. Lead ingots stamped with imperial inscriptions revealed the ship's true mission. Its cargo was bound for the emperor himself, likely Nero. The ingots may have been intended for rebuilding projects following the Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD. The ship, in essence, was a floating supply chain of imperial ambition. The wreck also tells of Rome's shipbuilding prowess. Its timbers were carefully fitted and caulked with pitch. Its size dwarfed most contemporary vessels, showing how Roman engineers pushed the boundaries of seafaring design. To drain the Buhen wreck is to witness the empire in motion. Goods harvested from distant provinces, processed into commodities, and shipped across seas under imperial seal. It was through ships like these that Rome remained fed, adorned, and rebuilt after disaster. The wreck is a frozen moment in time, a reminder that even the most powerful empire depended on fragile wooden hulls crossing unpredictable seas. Further east, along the coast of Judea, lies another marvel revealed by draining the seas, Caesarea Maritima. Built by King Herod the Great in the 1st century BCE, it was one of the most ambitious harbor projects of the ancient world. To construct it, engineers faced a challenge: the Mediterranean offered no natural bay. Instead, they created an artificial harbor using a revolutionary material, hydraulic concrete. By mixing lime with volcanic ash imported from Italy, they produced a concrete that hardened underwater. Massive wooden caissons were filled with this mixture and sunk, forming breakwaters that enclosed a vast protected basin. Sonar mapping reveals the outlines of these structures, now collapsed beneath the waves. Draining the water restores the harbor's original shape: quays, warehouses, and lighthouses lining the shore. For a time, Caesarea rivaled Alexandria as a center of trade and administration. Yet the sea is relentless. In the 2nd century CE, a massive earthquake and tsunami struck, shattering the breakwaters. Without constant repair, the harbor decayed. By late antiquity, it had lost its prominence. Still, the innovation it represented, concrete that conquered the sea, influenced Roman engineering across the empire. To stand on the drained seabed of Caesarea is to witness both triumph and fragility. It shows how human ambition can bend nature, but also how nature, in time, reclaims its dominion. The Mediterranean is littered with wrecks, each a fragment of Rome's story. Off Cyprus, ships carried copper ingots, the raw material for bronze weapons and tools. Near France, amphorae of wine and oil testify to the agricultural wealth of the provinces. In the Aegean, vessels laden with marble slabs reveal the scale of Rome's architectural hunger. When drained, these wrecks become more than broken wood and pottery. They are silent convoys, reminders of the empire's vast economic web. Each ship speaks of risk, storms, piracy, navigational error, and of resilience, the endless movement of goods that sustained Rome for centuries. Together, they reveal the scale of Roman trade. Millions of amphorae were produced, filled, shipped, emptied, and discarded. So vast was this flow that hills of broken amphorae still stand outside Rome, artificial mounds created by centuries of import. Without the ships, without the harbors, without the constant pulse of maritime commerce, Rome could never have risen to supremacy. In draining the seas of the Mediterranean, a pattern emerges. Harbors like Portus reveal the infrastructure of empire. Wrecks like Buhen reveal its lifelines. Engineering feats like Caesarea reveal its daring. Together, they tell a story not of isolated achievements but of a civilization defined by its mastery of water. Rome's legions marched on land, but Rome's endurance depended on the sea. Its grain came from Egypt, its oil from Hispania, its luxuries from the east. Ships carried not only goods but culture, spreading Roman law, language, and architecture to distant shores. Yet the drained seas also remind us of fragility. Ships sank, harbors collapsed, and even the greatest empire could not escape decline. The sea that had carried Rome's power also bore witness to its fall. Across 3 worlds, the lighthouses and funerary fleets of Egypt, the fortress chains of the Nile, and the harbors and wrecks of Rome, draining oceans and sands reveals the hidden skeleton of civilization. Beneath water and earth lie the true engines of history, the structures, vessels, and systems that allowed societies to flourish. What is uncovered is not merely stone and timber, but vision. The Egyptians who buried ships at Abydos imagined an eternal journey. The engineers of Buhen envisioned borders secured by walls. The builders of Portus and Caesarea saw harbors as lifelines binding empires together. Each achievement reflects the human drive to master environment, to bend nature toward survival, prosperity, and legacy. The seas have hidden these stories for centuries, but technology allows them to resurface. In draining the oceans, we drain time itself, peeling away the layers of loss to see civilizations as they once were, vibrant, ambitious, flawed, and profoundly human. When the waters return and the sands shift again, these places vanish from sight, yet they are never truly gone. Beneath every shoreline, beneath every dune, echoes of the past wait in silence. Egypt's lighthouses, ships, and fortresses, Rome's harbors, wrecks, and concrete marvels, all of them tell the same story, that civilizations rise not just on land, but on the fragile edge between earth and water. What we have drained, uncovered, and reconstructed is more than stone, wood, or clay. It is proof of human persistence, of builders who thought beyond their own lifetimes, of sailors who risked seas for empire, of engineers who defied nature itself. Today, their voices reach us not through words, but through the ruins they left behind. The lighthouse that once guided sailors still stands in memory. The forts that guarded the Nile still remind us of vigilance. The Roman harbors, emptied of waves, still whisper of trade that bound a continent together. Civilizations may fall, waters may rise, sands may bury, but human ingenuity endures. In every lost harbor, every buried ship, every fortress submerged, we find the same lesson: the past is never as far away as it seems. It waits, hidden beneath waves and dunes, until we are ready to uncover it again. This is the true legacy of the oceans we drained, not simply ruins revealed, but civilizations remembered. ***. Like, comment, and subscribe the channel.